This video is sponsored by SimpliSafe. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. Who are they? Well, my name is Mr. Beat, and I'll tell you who they are. It's the deep state. Don't believe me? You don't believe me? Follow me. Come on. Come on!
Matt? You need to come eat dinner.
Huh?
It's time to eat dinner.
Okay, but wait. I want to show you something. Come here, come here.
Matt, you're stressing me out.
Stress? You want to talk about stress? I've just stumbled upon a major government conspiracy. How about that for stress, huh? Take a look at this! Can I talk to you about this? Can I talk to you about this? I've been dying to talk to you about this all day. Deep state, deep state, deep state. The phrase keeps coming up over and over again every day. Deep state, deep state. This whole box is deep state. This whole box. So I go to the deep state website. What do I find out? There is no deep state website. How can there be no deep state website? How can there be no deep state website? I got boxes full of deep state. So I go marching down to the deep state office. I want to go see Elon and Doge. So I'm knocking on the door. I'm knocking on the door. I'm like, Elon! Elon, hello! I gotta talk to you about the deep state. And when I open the door, what do I find? Not a single desk in that office. There's no Elon. There's no Doge. Honey, half of the government doesn't even exist. It's a ghost town.
Matt, your food's gonna get cold.
The deep state is a conspiracy theory it's defined as the people within the U.S. government and military who are in secret control of government policy.
Is this evidence to support that a deep state does exist?
Not long ago, if you mentioned the deep state, many would call you a conspiracy theorist. Now we are discussing how strong it is.
I've been tweeting about the so-called deep state, which is a conspiracy theory that government employees loyal to...
That a deep state, Clinton-Obama loyalist group would do everything they can to sink President Trump.
And made it the administrative state, the deep state.
Here's my plan to dismantle the deep state and reclaim our democracy from Washington corruption once and for all.
The deep state.
You ever notice how people use that phrase, but few people actually define it? Well, in this video, I will actually attempt to explain what the deep state is, where the phrase came from, and why so many people won't shut up about it. True story, someone straight up stole a camera out of my car while it was parked in the driveway. Not a pivotal moment in American history, but it got me thinking. If someone can steal something small, what about the big stuff? What about my family? That's why I'm partnering with SimpliSafe to protect the people I care about. And now you can too, for 50% off, which is a pretty good deal, but only if you act fast, okay? Now here's the problem with traditional security systems. They wait until the bad stuff has already happened. Kind of like historians. But SimpliSafe's new Active Guard stops things before they happen, with agents reacting in real time, ready to intervene the second someone shady shows up. These monitoring agents can speak to intruders, turn on alarms and lights, and even request urgent police dispatch. Plus, SimpliSafe's AI knows the difference between trusted visitors dropping by unannounced and someone trying to rob you. It's not just cameras, it's locks, sensors, the whole deal, all managed from the SimpliSafe app, giving you full control from anywhere. You can check your home security from a night out or even while on a walk, like I am right now. With monitoring plans starting around $1 a day, there are no long-term contracts or cancellation fees, just peace of mind. If you've been thinking about getting serious about home security, now's the time. Save 50% off your SimpliSafe security system when you sign up for a professional monitoring plan and get your first month free. Visit simplisafe.com/MrBeat to customize yours. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. All right, will you settle down and have another cup of coffee? What is the deep state? Well, the phrase is Turkish, believe it or not. According to the historian Ryan Gingeris, the phrase can be traced back to the beginning of Turkey as a modern country, Derin Devlet. In the years leading up to and during the Turkish War of Independence, a network of criminal gangs did the dirty work to create the country, working outside the law but remaining useful to the new government. They were the Derin Devlet, or deep state. That said, the idea of a deep state is also present in countries around the world. Yep, now it's everybody's business but the Turks. Even before the Turks, folks believed that there was a secret network of powerful people looking to control society. In medieval Europe, they believed this group included witches and Satan worshippers. In the 1700s, Europeans shifted their fears to the Freemasons, or the so-called Illuminati. In the 1900s, people shifted their fears yet again to global organizations, supposedly more powerful than individual countries. The International Monetary Fund, the World Economic Forum. But what about today? Oh, plenty of people still fear their own versions of the deep state, like the political movement QAnon. Its followers believe the, quote, deep state includes a secret group of Hollywood actors, politicians, medical experts, and high-ranking government officials who are doing horrible things to children. But it's not just QAnon. According to one poll, almost half of Americans think the deep state definitely exists. But most people who talk about the deep state have a difficult time defining it. Ryan Gingeris, the historian dude I was referring to a couple minutes ago, says the phrase, quote, generally refers to a kind of shadow or parallel system of government in which unofficial or publicly unacknowledged individuals play important roles in defining and implementing state policy. But I've simplified the definition even further. Those who have access to government resources who independently and secretly use those resources. Now, I argue that Gingeris was only partially right with his description. You see, members of the deep state can independently and secretly use these resources to implement state policy, but they also may independently and secretly use these resources to promote some sort of personal agenda. For example, say someone who has access to government resources really hates me and really wants to take me down. Think about it, Johnny! If they want to take me down, they could. They could spy on me, have the IRS or DOJ investigate me, push out a bunch of negative propaganda about me. PSYOPs! Many supporters of the current president, Donald Trump, argue that the deep state has done just that, gone after him because he wants to take the deep state out. For his second term, Trump even nominated this guy, Kash Patel, as FBI director, who vowed to dismantle the deep state.
I'd shut down the FBI Hoover building on day one and reopening it the next day as a museum of the deep state.
Well, he didn't do that, but many Trump supporters do think he'll dismantle the deep state eventually. But hold on, now I'm throwing a bunch of acronyms at you. FBI, DOJ, IRS, CIA, LOL. Let's go ahead and break down the very real deep state that has existed in the United States since World War II. So yeah, since I'm an American and this channel focuses on American history, let's focus on the rise of the deep state in the United States. For most of American history, the executive branch of the federal government, that's the president and all of his helpers, was fairly transparent, meaning we knew what they were up to. It was also fairly small. The Constitution itself gave very few explicit powers to the president compared to Congress. Today, there are millions of Americans officially working for the executive branch of the federal government, but back in the 1790s, there were fewer than 100 federal employees. I should stress that we're only talking about civilians here, sweetums. This isn't counting the military. Over the years, as the power of the president grew and grew, so did the size of the entire executive branch. Not only that, but Congress was like, hey, Mr. President, we passed a bunch of new laws, and we need you to create new departments to enforce them. First came the Department of the Interior, then came the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Commerce, the Department of Labor, and so on and so forth. Today, there's 15 executive departments and major agencies within those departments, not to mention all the independent agencies. Holy wowza. But we'll get back to them in a bit. By 1901, there were around 231,000 federal employees that worked for the executive branch. But hey, the country had grown significantly by that point, so this is logical. And yeah, at this point, I'd argue there still wasn't what I would call a deep state. I guess you could say that technically the Secret Service did secret stuff by that time, but that's hardly notable since it was so small and didn't have much power at the time. That began to change 7 years later. Let's see, 7 years after 1901 would be 1908. The year was 1908. That was the year Napoleon Bonaparte's brother's grandson, Attorney General Charles Bonaparte, created the Bureau of Investigation, which eventually morphed into the Federal Bureau of Investigation, more commonly known today as the FBI. The FBI did a lot of secret stuff, especially during World War I. But things really began to get spicy during World War II. After not being prepared for the Japanese attack at Pearl Harbor, President Franklin Roosevelt rushed to authorize the creation of the Office of Strategic Services, or OSS, the country's first intelligence agency. Before World War II, it was the military that gathered intelligence about stuff other countries were doing, and it was usually here and there, sporadically, and usually without much long-term preparation. But the OSS didn't just gather and analyze intelligence. They created propaganda and an information war that targeted enemy governments. They spied on enemy governments, of course, but also straight up sabotaged them.
Now, y'all might have heard rumors about the Armada happening soon. Well, we'll be leaving a little earlier. We're gonna be dropped into France dressed as civilians. Once we're in enemy territory, as a bushwhacking guerrilla army, we're gonna be doing one thing and one thing only. Killing Nazis.
Oh yeah, that movie, Inglourious Bastards. I mean, it's a fictional movie, but that's the type of stuff they would have done. They organized resistance groups within enemy countries and were incredibly successful in doing so. And they did all of this in secret, classified. Oh, I mean, we found out about it much later. That's how I knew about it to tell you in this video. After the war ended, so did the OSS. However, the now President Harry Truman was now all worried about the threat of the Soviet Union, so he created the Strategic Services Unit and then the Central Intelligence Group, which then morphed into the Central Intelligence Agency, or CIA, which, yep, still exists today. Now, when I think about the deep state, the CIA is the absolute first organization that comes to mind. Made up entirely of civilians, the CIA spies on the rest of the world in the name of national security. It oversees covert operations. Many of these covert operations have been controversial. Okay, extremely controversial. You know, doing stuff like overthrowing democratically elected governments, political assassinations, torture, trafficking illegal and dangerous stuff, mind control, psychological warfare, covering up stuff. Oh, and not just spying on foreign citizens, spying on domestic citizens. That means Americans. Well, shoot. The FBI had already been doing that decades before the CIA existed. In the 1920s, it would wiretap phone calls or spy on phone calls in order to arrest people smuggling alcohol during Prohibition. The Supreme Court later said that was totally legal, bro. But in the decades after that, Congress passed additional laws to prevent the FBI from spying on people without a warrant from a judge. In the meantime, that didn't stop the FBI from spying on folks like, I don't know, Martin Luther King Jr.? But anyway, back to the CIA. We don't know exactly how much money the CIA gets to spend, although it could be as much as $20 billion a year.
Hello, I am Evan from Necessary Information.
I need the necessary information about the CIA.
If you want to be entertained and learn about the CIA, I'm your guy.
What are your go-to stories about actual things the CIA has done?
MK Ultra is a thing that people always think about. For people who are uninitiated, MK Ultra was basically a mind control series of experiments where the CIA was trying to use different, basically torture methods combined with psychedelic drugs on willing and unwilling participants to try and crack truth serums and mind control. It's the thing that people ask me about the most, I would say. The thing I always tell people is you'll hear supposedly crazy people out in the street nowadays, yelling about how the government put a microchip in their brain and whatnot. And it sounds ludicrous and you kind of think oh, somebody should get that person some help. But if you were a veteran that the CIA basically kidnapped or a prisoner in the 60s, and then you were ranting and raving about how they forced you to take a bunch of LSD and then tortured you for 40 days straight, everyone would think that you are crazy. You know what I mean? But that's something that actually happened to you.
We know all about what the CIA does, as long as it happened a long time ago, because most of what the CIA does is classified secret. We don't know much about what they are doing today. Now, we will someday, but right now, who the heck knows what they are doing? And this freaks a lot of people out because people generally don't like powerful people who are supposed to be public servants working for all of us, keeping secrets from us about what they are doing. I always say whenever someone tells a secret, it's usually to protect themselves, not others. Okay, perhaps that's too cynical. The CIA officially exists to protect the American people, and it'd be wild to assume that every member of the organization is abusing their power for some nefarious personal agenda. That's likely not the case. Plus, in reaction to the Church Committee, a group that investigated the abuses by the deep state in 1975, and led by the legendary Idaho Senator Frank Church, Congress passed a series of laws to further restrict not just the deep state, but the entire executive branch. Still, as long as government resources are being used for secret purposes, Americans will understandably remain skeptical, especially when they consider all the wild and horrible stuff the CIA has actually done in the past.
We do know that the CIA is directly involved with a lot of drug trade and profiting off of the drug trade to further their main thing, toppling democratic governments that they didn't like because they were socialists and replacing them with a American-aligned puppet dictator. Pretty much everything the CIA did up until the fall of the Soviet Union was just trying to get a leg up on the communists.
Right.
They would have people sit in a room. If you've ever seen The Men Who Stare at Goats, it's basically that. That was a real thing that they did, where they would have people sit in a room and try and guess what's in the box without seeing it. Mm-hmm. And then they would use that to try and remotely spy on Russian nuclear projects. Operation Midnight Climax. It's exactly what you would think that the name would be as well. They would basically lure men into a encounter with a prostitute and then unknowingly give the man LSD while there was a two-way mirror with CIA agents sitting on the other side, just to see what happens if we give a man LSD and then tell him to get with a prostitute. And we watch with taxpayer money.
And it's not just the CIA secretly gathering intelligence. There's the Defense Intelligence Agency, or DIA, National Security Agency, or NSA, DEA, NGA, NRO, OIA, yeah, that's their actual logo, INR, OICI, ODNI, IARPA, the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard all have their own intelligence agencies. All of these agencies employ thousands, if not tens of thousands of people with budgets of billions of dollars, and most of them have only gained power ever since 9/11 got most Americans freaking out about terrorism. The NSA is particularly controversial as it is essentially running a mass surveillance program and has tracked hundreds of millions of people's movements using cell phone metadata. In total, the United States spent more than $100 billion last year on intelligence, and most of that budget is outsourced to the private sector. In 2017, we found out that more than 1.2 million people have access to top secret information. Woeness. So the deep state is real, but the problem is that so many folks have changed the definition of it. It's morphed into something much more confusing, which is why I'm making this video. For many modern Republicans, the phrase deep state means the deep administrative state, meaning the folks who are not elected by the public, but who are actually running things. They have all these government resources at their disposal, and most of us have no idea who exactly they are or what they are actually doing. And the bureaucracy.
Why does bureaucracy exist? Well, fill in your W17L3SS continuation forms now to watch the rest of the video.
We have too many government workers, and they are paid way too much.
Obscene levels of graft, bureaucracy. Red tape.
The bureaucracy is often inefficient, and I get the backlash. We didn't vote for these folks, and they seem to not be getting the job done, so why do they have so much power, huh? Who are these people? Wait a second. They're probably just ordinary people, right? I imagine all of them aren't corrupt narcissists who only crave power, right? Right? Well, here's the thing. The bureaucracy of the executive branch is made up of millions of ordinary people. And other than the intelligence agencies and military, we do know exactly what these people do. The so-called deep administrative state is not that secret at all. According to the UCLA law professor, John Michaels, the executive branch of the United States is among the most transparent in the world. Quote, American agencies by law and custom are overwhelmingly transparent and accessible, far more than are many Middle Eastern, Asian, and European ministries, and again, often more so than Congress and the White House too. So it's really freaking important to make that distinction. When we talk about the deep state, we are talking about those in the executive branch independently and secretly using government resources. In other words, if we know exactly what these bureaucrats do, they're not in the deep state. These bureaucrats that often get lumped in with the deep state come from a wide range of backgrounds. They are fragmented into many smaller groups. These millions of bureaucrats are not working together, and so they're decentralized. The work they do is mostly defensive, not proactive, meaning it's more difficult to pursue any agenda that Congress didn't allow by law. The problem now, though, is since almost everyone has seemingly agreed that the deep state is bad, now it's become a convenient phrase to criticize folks you disagree with. Unfortunately, these days, deep state is often just another weaponized phrase meant to take out political enemies. Due to that, the phrase has kind of lost its true meaning. Anytime a president can't get something they want done, supporters of that president often now just say, well, it's because the deep state didn't let them get it done. It's an easy scapegoat, but don't get it twisted. The deep state is real. You read your comments. What are the biggest challenges trying to get the word out about what the deep state really is?
I think it's just everyone has a different interpretation of who they would consider to be part of the deep state. Also, we don't know. Like, we have no idea who the actual deep state is. I don't think a lot of people in power have any idea who the actual deep state is, just because they're going to be pretty good at like hiding who is actually in control of a lot of things. It's almost kind of like a criminal organization, but if that criminal organization had like the most resources of any people in the history of the world.
Just remember, the reason why we call the deep state deep is because you have to search deep. So deep to dig up the facts. If the facts were easy to come by, it's not the deep state. Sorry to get all deep on you in this video. But what do you think? Do I secretly work for the deep state? If I did, how would you prove that? If I suddenly died, would it be because the deep state killed me? Let me know by telling me via Messenger Raven. Thanks for staying curious. Johnny Harris made a video about the deep state, you know, and he's still alive, so I think I'm good. Unless Johnny Harris is part of the deep state.